Blessed day, guys, and peace be upon this morning. So in this video, we're going to learn how to configure basic firewall policies. So as you can remember, in the previous video, we learned how to configure OSPF and static routing. We configured OSPF in all the layer 3 devices, the 2 routers and the firewall, and we did configure static routing on the firewall such that all the traffic that do not match the routing entry are forwarded to ISP, okay? Because we never know which destination our inside host will request, okay? All right, so I'll just let you know that today we are doing number 6 and number 7, NAT plus inspection policies, okay? All right, so without any further ado, I'll just open our notepad to let the steps to follow to achieve the objective. Yeah, so the first step, basic firewall policies configuration. The first step is always to draw the necessary topology, decorate, and comment. So guys, we've been using this topology since we began firewall configuration. So we've done a basic configuration of the firewall. We did DHCP. We've done SSH, and now today, we've done also OSPF and default static routing, and now today we're doing basic firewall policies. So in the next video, we're going to do advanced firewall policies, okay? All right, so in case this is your first time watching this video, kindly try to watch the previous videos, because what we're doing now is just done on top of what was done in the previous videos, okay? All right, so the second step, you can see here, ensure to complete the last stage above of routing configuration. Guys, I'm just using the last topology that we used to configure OSPF and default static routing. So kindly watch that video and ensure that you've configured OSPF in these devices, okay? All right, so the third step, configure NAT to translate both inside and DMZ IP when they try to access internet. All right, so guys, basically, you know, in normal circumstances, our host devices, are not using the same private IP addresses to access the internet. There is some translation somewhere, and that translations are done by NAT-enabled devices. It can be done with by a router, a firewall, etc., etc. Okay, so we're going to use this firewall, okay, so that it can translate the IP address from inside, all the IP addresses from inside, and all the IP addresses from the DMZ when they try to access this Google server here, okay? All right, so that's the beginning of Cisco ASA Firewall policy configuration. So we just click on the firewall and just minimize it a little bit, okay? Then we configure NAT. How do we configure NAT? We said here in the course description here that NAT plus network objects. So we're going to create object networks and apply NAT, okay? So enable our password is Cisco, okay, and config T. All right, so we've said that we want to create object networks and apply NAT. So how do you create object networks? So we just say object network, then we give it a name. Let's say we want to translate from inside to outside, so we just say inside, we just give it a name, inside to out, okay, and we just hit enter. After we've created this object network, now we specify the subnet that we want it to be used, okay? So the subnet is this one, okay? We just say subnet is 192.168.100.0 with a subnet mask, okay, 255.255.255.0, and we hit enter. And now let's apply NAT. We just say NAT, then in bracket, after if you've written in bracket, now you say that this should apply between inside and outside. So you just write inside, comma, outside. Remember, inside is just a name of this interface, okay? And outside was the name of this interface. Kindly watch the previous videos. They are very, very important here. Okay. Then here, after you've written that, just close the bracket, then space, then just write dynamic interface. Dynamic interface. Good. So, you know, NAT, there are three types of NATs. We have static, dynamic, and port address translation. So, you know the type of NAT that we're trying to use here. Okay. All right. So then exit. Let's create another object network for DMZ to outside. Okay. All right. So we just go here and config T. So we create another object network. Just say object network with DMZ to out. Okay. All right. Then we specify the subnet that we want to use, that we want it to be used. Okay. We want it to use which subnet? 172.16.10.0. So we just say subnet 172.16.10.0 with the subnet mask of 255.255.255.240 because of the /28 notation, and we just hit enter. Then we do the same thing here that we did above here. So we just say NAT, apply NAT to be used between DMZ now, DMZ and outside. Okay. Then apply dynamic interface. Exit and write memory to save. Okay. Config T. All right. So guys, basically we've done the first part of NAT configuration. We've created the object networks and applied NAT. Okay. All right. So the second thing here is to configure firewall policies using access control lists to allow every communication in the network. Remember, in this part of firewall configuration, it was all about basic firewall policies. What we want to achieve is just to enable communication from this network to this network. So, for example, if I can just try to ping, remember, I have configured IP addresses to these servers, and you can see. Let me try to ping the DHCP server. You can see the DHCP server is 179.16.10.10. So if you can just go to this router and say enable, then try to ping 172.16.10.10. It will not ping. Why? Because by default firewall blocks every traffic unless you implement policies. So that's why in this video we are going to do basic firewall policy. We're not going to inspect a lot, just to allow communication and enable this network to communicate with this network and access almost everything. Okay. All right. And also allow this network to communicate with any of this and to access everything. But now in the second part, which is advanced firewall policy, we're going to start restricting what kind of resources to be accessed. Okay. All right. So how do we do that? Here, the fourth part, configure firewall policies using access control lists. We normally use access control lists to configure firewall policies. All right. So what we do, we just create the access control. We just say access list. Now here we create a named access list. Okay. We create a named access list. So the first access list that I want to access, I want to allow access to DMZ. Okay. Let's access DMZ. So I'm just going to say DMZ access. Okay. This is the first named access control list that I want to create here. Then we just say it's an extended access control list. Then permit. Okay. Permit. The first service, or the first how can I say this? The first parameter that I want to permit is ping. Ping basically uses ICMP protocol. So we just permit ICMP. Okay. Then let me query, and we say any. Then query again. Yes. Any. So this is the first access control list that we implement here. We tell the file that create an access control list by the name DMZ access and permit any ping, whenever someone tries to ping from which subnet. Remember, this is a basic configuration, the basic firewall policy configuration. Okay, in the next video, maybe we'll be saying that start from, only the subnet to the DMZ subnet. Okay, and we just hit enter. All right, then we proceed. How many services do we have here? We have web server, so we have to permit also that service. We have to permit the firewall to allow access to web server. Web server uses which protocol? HTTP or HTTPS. So when you come back to the firewall, we still use the same access control list. Remember, it's DMZ access. Okay, we're still using DMZ access list, DMZ access. Okay, then we just say extended, then permit. Okay, now HTTP is run over which protocol? TCP. Okay, HTTP is a TCP protocol, so we just say TCP, TCP any, then equals to port 80. So this protocol here, this rule here allows any IP address to access any IP address with this resource, okay, which is HTTP. Okay, and we just hit enter. Okay, then you remember we have HTTP and HTTPS, so let's put here 8080 also. Okay, all right, then let's go back again. Which resource do you want to access here? DNS. So we go here and enable firewall to allow access to the DNS service. Okay, so we just say access list, DMZ access. Okay, DMZ access. Be very careful that the name matches across all the rules. Okay, all right, then extended, then permit. DNS is a UDP or TCP. Let me just try to DNS, UDP or TCP. DNS always designed to use both UDP and TCP, so we both applies the two protocol. Okay, so when you go here, you just let's start with TCP. TCP any equals to port 53. DNS normally uses port 53. Okay, and you hit enter. Now because DNS uses both TCP and UDP, you change this to UDP now. Okay, UDP, and you hit enter. All right, which other resource do you want to allow access to? DHCP server. All right, so we just click here and the same name access list DMZ access. Okay, then extended, permit. Well, DHCP normally uses UDP, and DHCP has two ports, port 67 and port 80. So if you can just go back here and say DHCP DNS or UDP, DHCP. So you see DHCP uses UDP and it has two ports. Okay, it has two ports. Where are the ports? It has port 67 and port 68. DHCP ports. So it has 67 and 68. So we allow both ports to be used. Okay, or so we just say it uses UDP any okay equals to port 67 first. Remember, it uses two ports and 68. Okay, all right. Now, what other resource do you want to access from the DMZ? Is email server. So email normally uses a lot of protocols. We are not going to configure access to email server. Okay, email service. Okay, all right, but it's very easy. We just do it the way we're doing it. You must the first thing, you must create a named access control list with extended access control list, the name extended access control list. Then you permit is email UDP or TCP? You write here. If it is UDP or UDP, I mean, if it is TCP or UDP, then you write the way we did here in the case of DNS, okay? Or then you give the source where you want the traffic to come from and where the traffic should go to and to access which resource, okay? Very simple. So that's all about creating firewall policies. So guys, basically remember, we've only created these firewall policies, but we've not enacted them, we've not put them into action. So to put them into action, then we must bind it to this interface such that when the traffic reaches there, firewall will know how to inspect the traffic. Okay, just click it and we just say access group. Now access group DMZ access. Then let's query. Yes, in should when it's getting into the DMZ interface. In interface query DMZ. Good. So this is the command. This is the command to apply the rule into the interface. You tell the firewall that whenever a traffic reaches here on this interface, please use this rule, DMZ access. DMZ access as all of this entry, all the entries that we've been configuring right now. Okay. All right. So let's try to ping the DHCP server again. I'll try to ping again. Now see, it's now going through. Why? Because the firewall has been told to allow access to ICMP service. Remember, we configured a rule to allow ICMP here. ICMP any. Okay. All right. So when you go back here, good. So configure DHCP DNS web server on the DMZ. Okay. All right. So guys, before we do that, I want us to configure another rule to allow these devices to access this Google server, because as you can see, I configured this Google server with 88888. Okay, so if I can just come here and try to ping 88888, it will not ping. Why? Because there are no firewall policies explaining how to access the Google server, right? Okay, so let's configure a firewall policy to allow access to outside network. Okay, just click the firewall and we just say access list. Now let this one say internet access. Okay, then extended permit. Okay, permit, we will just want to ping the web server and access only web service, which is HTTP and HTTPS, or maybe DNS domain. Okay, so we just say ICMP permit ICMP any, yeah, and you hit enter. So the first thing is to allow us to ping the web server. All right, good. So the second rule, we just use access list internet access, extended permit TCP. Now for DNS, remember DNS uses two protocols, TCP and UDP. So just say TCP any to equals to which port? DNS uses port 53. Then another one for UDP now, UDP, and hit enter. Okay. The second thing that I want us to access here is web HTTPS. So we just write the same access control list. Permit web uses TCP any equals to port 80 and port 80 for HTTPS. Okay. All right. So guys, basically, let's now apply this access control list to this interface so that firewall can know how to inspect traffic when the traffic reaches here. Okay, so we just go to access group access group, it's internet access. Let me just copy it. Make sure you copy it correctly, because if you miss one letter, the file will know. It's case sensitive. Okay. All right. So access group, then in to which interface? Outside. Okay. And you hit enter. And now if I can just come here and try to ping the Google server again. Remember the first time I tried to ping the Google server, all were unsuccessful. Okay. So you see 100% success. Okay. Alright, so remember we've only tested ICMP. Now let's try to test which one? The DHCP server. Remember, I want all of these hosts here to access, I mean to get IP address from this DHCP server. Okay, so just click on the DHCP server. I come to services. I want to configure it very fast. I come to services, then the DHCP, and the default gateway. The default gateway of this LAN is 192.168.100.1. Okay, then the DNS is here. I can see the DNS is 172.16.10.7. So I just make it the DNS to be 172.16.10.7. Okay, then I want the DHCP server to start giving IP address from 192.168.100 dot, maybe let's say 101. Yes. Okay, then this site this subnet has a subnet mask of 2555. It's a class C, so that's 20. Okay, I mean 2550. Okay, then the maximum number of addresses, I want only 100 addresses. That's enough for us. Then we edit this pool to be, let's say, inside pool. Okay, and we add. So the inside pool, I can see 2 inside pool here, so I just delete 1. So I can see 2. Yeah, so yeah, this is okay now. The default gateway represent the IP address of this router's interface. Okay, the DNS is only one in the network, which is this one here. Okay, and then start giving IP addresses from 101. I started here, and we only want how many users in the network? 100 users, and we just save. Okay, all right. So when we try to request IP addresses, well, this DHCP server should be able to give these guys IP addresses. So if you can just see here, still they don't have IP addresses. So it's a must we go to this interface. Remember, we have to go to this. You can see all of them, they don't have IP addresses. So it's a must we go to this interface, which is a gig 00, and to configure DHCP relay and tell this interface that whenever you receive any request for IP address allocation, please forward that request to this DHCP server. Being that this router can communicate this with this DHCP server, that request will reach here successfully, and the DHCP server will distribute IP to these guys. Okay, so we just go to gig 00. Okay, and put it minimize. Yeah, so it's gig 00. Okay, then we say IP helper address to be the IP address to DHCP server. So the DHCP server had IP address of 172.16.10.10, and you hit enter, exit, and do right. So I trust if you go to the computers and try to request IP address from the DHCP server, they should get. So let's go to this one. You see it's still not getting. So desktop, you see it's still not getting, right? So come to static and try to request. It should get, because we've allowed that service. We've allowed DHCP service. You can see everything is right. Okay, all right. So even this one. So our rule for DHCP access is working. All right. All right. So we can successfully access these resources. So let's try to access the Google server here. Okay, I just want to try to access the Google server. Let's go here and ping 8.8.8.8. You can see it's reaching successfully. And if we just say trace 8.8.8.8, you can see all the paths are valid. So guys, basically I believe this video has really helped you know how to configure basic firewall policies, which is to allow explicitly allow every communication on the network. So when we meet next, guys, we are going to do advanced firewall policy configuration. So I'll mark this section. I'll not mark them done. I'll mark them done in the next video. Thank you so much, guys. Please subscribe to this channel, like this video, share with friends, and let's see you again in the next video. Bye. Thank you.